Let me just adjust this frame slightly. I don't know if you can hear me all right. Diego Rivera is already in the chat box. So you win a coconut, Diego. Can you hear me all right? Diego Rivera, Elunio Velasquez. Can you hear me? So I do a sound test first before I go anywhere. Oh, good. That's good to know. Okay, I'm just going to wait for a few more people to turn up because I bet I'll just let them know where I am. Actually, how do I share this? Oh, no, yeah. Here we go. Facebook. So I should do the shares. Post to Facebook. Twitter. I'm not okay. And what's next? Google Plus. I'm not a member of all of them actually. I'm on Instagram, but I don't use it very much. So look. What else am I on? Ah, we have GS Evolved. Hello, Anti Morn and GS Evolved. Hello, how are you? I hope you're all right. I think I've shared it everywhere now. Good evening, GS. Nice to see you. Hello, Steve 071. Greetings. How are you? I hope you guys are well. And according to Diego, you can hear me, which is good. Any problems with the sound or the picture, just let me know and I'll sort it out. Okay. Now, something like tags. What's this? Toggle time. No, I need tags. Hello, Tina. Hi, Tina. How are you? And Ben Grizzly. Hi, guys. Thanks for joining us. Tina said she would, and I'm really pleased she has. So thanks, Tina. I'll go through some of your comments actually from the notice before I do anything else. Where am I? Here we go. So I put up the notice here. Diego Rivera, are you going to discuss Theresa May dancing? There should be a Cobra meeting and she should be tried for crimes against human dancing. Exactly. I'm going to discuss that too. Hi, thanks, Tina. And I'm sorry, Neptune returns in here. The thing is, Neptune, if you're watching this on the recording, last live streams I did were at 9 p.m. All of them were at 9 p.m. and you still couldn't make it. So I think your dogs, obviously your dogs, also they may do a CIA, MI6, Mossad might do a false flag outside my house, and there are crisis actors everywhere. All right, Neptune. Hope you can join maybe later. I mean, this is going to be. This is a specific time limit on this particular live stream, and I'll tell you why in a minute. But Mr. Mann says we got food here. All right. You're talking about South Africa. Are you in South Africa? Are you in South Africa, Mr. Mann? But who else do we have here? Oops, we have MS1G. Hello, Stephen, Homeless Truth Seeker. Hi there. And how are you guys? I will, thanks, MS1G. Thank you very much. I'll keep up the good work. It's 3 minutes past now. I'll begin the lead off in a minute. But it's good you guys are here. Yeah, so I think everyone who's going to be here will be here. Now, there's a couple of things I want to tell you first of all. I've got the phones on the hook. Okay, and there's a reason for that. So I might be interrupted by a phone call for several reasons. Firstly, it's to do with work. So someone might want to call me to arrange work tomorrow. I've had a call from one person. I've dealt with that just before I came on air. But someone else might call me to deal with work tomorrow. And also, it can't be longer than 3 hours because at 10 p.m. I'm going to be on Talk Radio. So I'm sure most of you, if you like Hapanwo TV and Hapanwo Radio, I'm sure you're familiar with The Unexplained with Howard Hughes. Well, I'm going to be on that show. So tune in to Talk Radio at 10 p.m. tonight. And I've got to leave this on the hook. I've also got to leave this email open because the producer there might want to contact me. So I need to have that on as well. And so I'll just say hello to Crafty Nihilist. It's Liz. Oh, hello. Welcome. Yes. Oh, yes. The email you sent me and the underground tunnels and things like that. And the hunt thing you hear. I remember you. Yes. Liz, you live near that secret base. I don't know if you want to tell anyone exactly where it is, but you live near a secret base and there's tunnels under your house and you hear strange noises at night. I remember you very well. Thank you for your letter. It's really, really nice of you. And David Schultz Greetings from Ireland Falls, Maine. Hello, all the way from. Oh my goodness me, David. Thanks for for coming in from all that way and for making account for the differences in time. Stephen, lots of mosquitoes. Oh yeah, okay. Steve, yeah, I'm Steve. I hope you'll listen. If you can't listen to the live broadcast, it will of course be on. It will be on his website. He does a podcast. All his shows are arranged as a podcast. Mr. Mann, hi, Mr. Mann. Yeah, I haven't got food with me, but I've got drink. And Cosmic Claire, hey, how are you? Hey Ben, I think the Chemnitz demonstrations are part of the wave, which includes South African farms. That's a good point, actually. Yeah, because there's been a lot of trouble. There's been trouble in Chemnitz because Chemnitz, or whatever it's called. And hello, Gordon. Gordon, secondly, hello. Now, maybe I'll come on. Maybe we can talk more about this later when I finish the lead off, because I want to get onto the lead off. But there was an incident. We don't know exactly what the facts were with this incident, but there was some people killed, and it appears that it may be some recent migrants to Germany that did it, and so there's been a big demonstration in Chemnitz or Chemnitz. I don't know how you pronounce that. It's a German word, which is interestingly, that city used to be called Karl Marx City, and I don't know why they called it after that. Because Karl Marx never lived there, and it's supposedly something to do. I was looking it up on Wikipedia. It's supposedly, here it is, Chemnitz. Where was about Karl Marx? No, it doesn't. I can't find the part now. It's anyway. There was some completely trivial reason why they decided to name it after Karl Marx. Barry, rest in peace, Barry Chuckle. Hi there. Hi, Anthony. Chemnitz, I think pronunciation is an old name. Yeah. David Schultz. Valerie, also from Ireland Falls, Maine. Oh, is that your wife, David? Welcome, Valerie. Right. So thanks for joining us, Claire and Anthony and Stephen and everyone else, and David and the Crafty Nihilist. I'm going to begin the lead off on this subject. Okay. Now, as I said, the phone's on the hook. If you get interrupted by a phone call, it's because I might have to speak to some of the people at Talk Radio and also from my work, which, believe it or not, I do have a job, yes, despite people claiming otherwise. I have a job like most other people, and I have to work tomorrow. Okay, so this can't go on too long because I've got at 10 p.m. I'm going on The Unexplained, and it's going to be on the phone. South Africa. We're going to talk about South Africa, this large country on the southern tip of the African continent. It's actually the second, I think it's the second most populous country in Africa, apart from Nigeria, which is why the crisis in this particular country has the potential to spread to other areas of that continent and indeed the world beyond. But what's going on in South Africa right now is, I think, one of the greatest threats in that country's history, and it's going to cause an inordinate amount of suffering. And this is a country that has suffered enough. It has suffered enormously throughout its history. It has a very turbulent and violent history. It's been fought over by various empires, such as the Tswana Empire and the Sotho Empire. Sometime in the 5th or 6th century, there was large, full-scale conflicts between these two empires. And these displaced the Khoi and San people. Now, San, S-A-N, and Khoi, they're known as Bushmen. And I'll come back to that later because that's an important point. But the native people of South Africa are the true native people of South Africa are now a tiny minority that live in very remote desert areas, and they're called the Bushmen. They're known as the Bushmen, and they are racially, linguistically, and culturally totally different from anyone else in South Africa, black or white. Now, what happened was there was various landings by various people from the European settlers, from Portugal first of all, then the Netherlands, then Britain. And South Africa was a series of colonies for several centuries. I mean, the most famous one was the Cape Colony, which was ruled over by Cecil Rhodes, who's quite a character. I can tell he's quite a figure in the history of that area. And I believe that his influence still exists in that country. And it achieved independence in 1931. And it became the Republic of South Africa. Later, I think it was a Commonwealth nation that became the Republic of South Africa. Although for some reason it still competes in the Commonwealth Games. which is odd because other countries have left the Commonwealth and they don't. For example, the United States and Ireland and India, they can't compete in the Commonwealth Games. So I don't know why South Africa can. I don't know if you've seen the Commonwealth Games. It's kind of a mini Olympics. It's quite cool, actually. I was rooting for St. Helena because of the problems they've had with the airport and everything, which I talked about on a previous video. Anyway, in 1958, the government set up a system called apartheid, which means separation in Afrikaans. I can understand a lot of Afrikaans, actually, because it's similar to Dutch, which I can speak, although I'm a bit rusty now, because my mother was a Dutch woman. And the architect of apartheid was Hendrik Verwoerd, who was the Prime Minister of South Africa. And he said apartheid was a good thing. It involved good neighborliness. It means, good high fences, build good neighbors, etc. I think that quote might have been attributed to him. But it was actually a very corrupt, it was a very unjust and unworkable system. You can't say you have good neighborliness when you have a big house and your neighbor lives in the garden shed. Because what happened was there were the homelands. The black people were given these areas of self-government, which were homelands. But if you look at a map of where these homelands were, they were tiny little scraps in very, very small locations throughout the country. Some of them were no bigger than a few acres, and they were effectively there was chalets built next to each other where people were living, overpopulation. John Pilger wrote about that in his book Heroes, which is very interesting. The thing about apartheid is apartheid was abolished in a process that began in the 1980s and really was finished by about 1990. I've got to bring this chair up again. So I've got a really crappy chair. It keeps sinking downwards. Good. The end of apartheid was necessary. Apartheid was hang on, let me just check. Am I still in frame? Yes, I am. Apartheid was unworkable. It was not sustainable practically or morally. Thing is, it could have been made to work. There's nothing actually inherently unethical about what Verwoerd was saying. If it had been arranged differently with larger homelands, but it wasn't, and so that's why apartheid failed. Probably. I mean, I'm not sure. I'm not an expert on this, but that's how it looks to me right now. And of course, there was a big. Do you remember the anti-apartheid things in 1980? How there was these people standing outside supermarkets telling us not to eat Cape apples, boycotting various other South African goods. There was concerts in Wembley, and then eventually, of course, apartheid did fall. Mandela was released from jail, and I know he's not the angel we think he is. I know, but then nor is he a monster. Maybe I'll say more about Mandela later, but you'll find that history has a habit of making demons and angels out of completely mortal human beings. So historical figures tend to be seen either as pure black or pure white. So, for example, Winston Churchill, Mother Teresa, people like this, they're sort of like the angels of history, where all those people had a dark side to them. Whereas, of course, the ultimate monster was Adolf Hitler, and he wasn't pure evil. You see what I mean? They were pretty much like any other people. They had light and dark sides. But once apartheid was over, what happened to all the protesters? They went away, didn't they? South Africa sorted now, all done. But no. What happened in the early 90s and in the late 80s and early 90s with South Africa is that they jumped out the frying pan into the fire, and that is something which the full effects of that, the long-term effects of that transition, are only really being felt really seriously today. And what's happening in South Africa now is a symptom of that. It is a clear major effect of what's going on. Now, there's a lot of myths associated with the struggle to end apartheid. For example, of course, Nelson Mandela was not the flawless angel he was. He was involved in a bombing campaign. The organisation Mkhonto Sizwe, which is a terrorist group, which is now the militia of the ANC, and I'll be saying more about that later. They kill large numbers of people in bomb attacks and things like that. And this is why Mandela was put in jail. It wasn't because he wasn't a political prisoner. This is why Amnesty International wouldn't have anything to do with him. Is because he was he was jailed for a legitimate reason under the law of the land at the time. And he's the ANC, the victory of the ANC, the supermajority they had in South Africa, was achieved through terrorism. And I'm not necessarily to do with the MK, but Winnie Mandela. Winnie Mandela, the wife of Nelson Mandela, his ex-wife. I mean, one of the first things he got out of jail was when he got out of jail, was very wisely divorce her. She's now dead and good, and I cannot believe the people who are lauding Winnie Mandela as if she's some kind of civil rights heroine. She was a gangster's moll, and she helped achieve the victory of the ANC through a campaign of violence. And she had a gang of thugs. They were called her football team. But they didn't play any football. They just went around to various villages and towns, scaring the hell out of people and killing people. They had this, the method they used was one of the most horrific and sadistic execution methods imaginable, called necklacing. And what they would do is they would do this publicly. I've seen some videos of it, and I only watched one of them. That was enough for me. I couldn't watch any more. But they used to do it. They used to drag people out into the middle of the town, into the middle of the village, into the village square, and do this. Necklacing is where they kill you by putting a car tire around your neck, filling it with petrol, and setting the petrol alight. And I can't imagine a more horrible way to leave this mortal coil. And this campaign of sadistic murder by Winnie Mandela, I think in January 1989, it really reached its peak when they kidnapped and killed a 14-year-old boy called Stompie Muketse. Stompie Muketse, aged just 14, he was a teenage boy. They kidnapped him and they tortured him. They beat him with whips, and apparently Winnie Mandela herself was involved in this torture. And then they necklaced him and left his body for his community to find. That's what Winnie Mandela was like. Now, the government in South Africa today is led by a man called Cyril Ramaphosa. He's the latest prime minister. And last week, the government forcibly seized 2 farms. And this is the beginning of a policy that's been around for a long time. I mean, it was a law that was passed in the early 90s, but it was never really a problem up till now, because there were several reasons why it didn't have much effect to begin with. And I'll come on. I made a note of that somewhere. Oh, I'll just check out. Yeah. What happened was there was a talk about. I should have written this down. Hang on a sec. One moment. The idea was that any land that was seized illegally from a black person could then be returned to that black person, or the cash equivalent. And what they found was that most of the land owned by white farmers was actually not seized illegally from black people, and the small amount that was actually it was sorted out very amicably. The person usually took the cash payment. Very few of the actual people claimed their land back, and all they simply got compensation. So they took the money and they left it. That should have been the end of it. But then, what's happened since then is then the government is now moving on to other areas of land which have not been seized from anyone. They were basically land that was claimed, the uninhabited land that was claimed sometimes over 200 years ago. But the law states that any private individual or group who owns more than 25,000 acres of land is obliged to surrender anything extra to the state. Now, in other words, the state is stealing land. They're not buying it, they're stealing it. That's the word I'd use, is theft. But they're not using the word theft. The word they're using is expropriation. It's straight out of Orwell, isn't it? It's not theft, it's expropriation. And there was another, what was the other one? Oh, where is it? Here we go. Yeah, another word that you hear an awful lot, which I can't find now. It's gone. No worries. But it was another Orwellian term. I should have made a note of that. But it's essentially they use that word. It's as George Orwell said. You know, it's Orwellian language. It's like the ministry of truth, the ministry of love, the ministry of plenty. You can't call it theft because that's you work out what it was. They have to use the word expropriation. Now, do you remember in Cyprus a few years ago, the government carried out what I would consider a bank robbery? They stole, yes, I'm going to use the word stole, £6 billion from the people. Collectively, they stole £6 billion. What they did was they went to people's savings account. And if you had more than a certain amount of money in your savings account, the government would take some of it to pay off the national debt. Now, that is that they would use the power of the state. So it is violence. It's not. It is structural violence they were using. So it's robbery. So it's like someone walking up into a bank with a sawn-off shotgun and pointing it at the cashier, except it's less honest. But you know what? Do you know what they called this? Do you remember? They called it a levy. A levy. Do you remember? A levy. That's why what Orwell says about language was so important. It's not theft. It's expropriation. It's not bank robbery. It's a bank levy. And anyway, and the actual organisation in South Africa that's actually stealing all this farmland is called is another one, right? The Department of Rural Development and Land Reform. That's another great Orwellianism, isn't it? You know, what they did was this the Ministry of whatever. You've got to admire the genius of these people. You know, they can't call it the Department of Land Theft and Collectivization. They can't call it that because everyone would know what it was. Just give it a nice name, and no one will realise. No one will stop to think that it's actually what it really is. They targeted 2 farms because they were negotiating to buy the properties from the owners, and these negotiations are broken down. And it's hardly surprising because the government only offered 20 million rands. Now that's about £1.5 million. Now that's barely 10% of what the land is worth. And they calculated this on the size of the land being about 10 times the legal limit. So that's about 250,000 acres. 250,000 acres. And so 90% of it was seized. And basically it was seized without compensation. And the justification for this larceny is very multifaceted. It's very vague. You get a lot of talk of talk that sounds like Marxist economics. And then there's reparations. Reparations for historical injustices, whether real or perceived. And, well, that's, of course, this is straight out of cultural Marxism, isn't it? We hear the same thing in this country, you know. And if when a student is like kicked out of university because he's a white male, they'll say, well, he's responsible for slavery, isn't he? He did the Holocaust. You see, now, and this is, of course, is the institutional racism of South Africa, because the farmers are invariably white. It's a white profession in South Africa, farming. And South Africa is intoxicated by this institutional racism. And white people can be the victims of racism too. This is an important point you've got to realize. There's a myth that seems to be believed certainly by everyone in authority in society and all their underlings like Antifa and SJWs, that racism can only go in one direction. It can only go from white people to non-white people. It's kind of like a law of the universe, kind of entropy, a kind of force of gravity, which exists. There's no real explanation for why this physical force should exist, this physical law. They'll mutter platitudes about privilege and things like that, but that's not an explanation. And if you argue with them, then you're a racist too. But what you'll find with racism is this malevolence, or this hostility towards people who are a different color from you, different race, is something that affects all people. All groups of people can be guilty of this. And they can also be affected by it. They also can be targeted by this. It's not a one-way street. That's important to realize that point. And there's another important point is, where is it? Right, another, right. One moment. No, it's all right. I can remember it now. I've had some notes here and I haven't written them down. A lot of the farmland in South Africa, as I was explaining, there's this website called AfriForum, afriforum.com, which I recommend, was uninhabited before the arrival of the white settlers, the voortrekkers as they're called. This was land that was not occupied by anybody. At the time, it was actually, the voortrekkers were there. And as I said, there was a lot of land being taken and retaken, and people were deprived of land throughout the history of South Africa. And this didn't begin when white people arrived. The actual black South Africans today are descended from those Sotho and Swana empires that I talked about, these two empires that clashed and invaded about 1,000 years before white people arrived. And they took territory from the Khoi and San Bushmen. Now, if you look at the Khoi and the San, they look different. They are definitely racially different. They have a very different culture, and their language is very strange. They have clicks in it like this. That's actually part of the phonetics of their language. Very different from the Niger-Congo languages that are spoken by the black South Africans, Zulu, Xhosa, these languages. They have phonetics we're more familiar with. They're more like the phonetics of Indo-European languages. But if you're going to get to the point where, when you talk about land theft and reparations and things like that, should the black South Africans give up their rights to the nation in favor of the Bushmen? Because you only have to go back another 1,000 years, and the very same thing was happening. There was an invasion by racially Negroid people, as black people, speaking Niger-Congo languages. The Niger-Congo language group is huge. There's 1 billion speakers. And it means that Zulu and Xhosa are related to languages spoken in West Africa, like Nigeria and Ghana, 2,000 or more miles away. Because this is how far these people wandered. Should they give up the rights of their nation and leave it for the Bushmen? Do you see how absurd this concept is? This concept of historical reparation and historical guilt. It's nonsensical, because it's like an infinite spiral downwards. Because it's something, all you have to do, it could be that at some point someone will discover that the Bushmen themselves actually displaced another another group of people, and they actually come from outside South Africa too. And then you're back to square one. At some point, you have to draw a line under the present situation and move forward. And that's not my idea. That's actually Nelson Mandela's idea. Now, many of today's South African farmers are descended from these early voortrekkers. And there's actually a voortrekkers memorial you can go to in Johannesburg. It's like a church. And this guy called Annie Nowicki went there. He filmed it. It was really interesting. But these people, they had a terrible time with it. They were being attacked by the native tribes, and then later they were attacked by the British. But they husbanded this harsh terrain, and they've done it for over 200 years. South Africa has a hot, dry climate, but these people built irrigation ditches. They dug wells, and they're fiercely dedicated and proud of their land. And it's some of the most productive farmland in the world. Africa as a continent has the potential to be extraordinarily productive, one of the greatest agricultural regions on earth. And there are signs actually in the past. There's signs like people like Michael Tellinger and people like that have discovered signs of that in the past there was indeed a huge sophisticated civilization in that area. But the problem is there's wars, there's conflict, there's landmines and things like that. But really, I mean, this was the breadbasket of South Africa, and that is the problem. That is where the problem comes from. That's the problem that's going to affect the entire country. The name for their entire culture, Boer, means farmer in Afrikaans. And these are people who have endured enormous hardships during the voortrekking, during the time they established their culture and they established their civilization in that part of the world. As I say, mostly on uninhabited land. And they suffered enormously. They suffered from disease, from deprivation, and eventually, of course, there was war. There was the Boer War, where there were 110,000 were locked in a concentration camp and killed. Interestingly, it was the word concentration camp comes from the Boer War, and the architect of the concentration camps was Lord Kitchener, the man who organised the Great War. He's the man who points at the poster in this famous poster points out at the poster saying, "Your country needs you." And today, they are now the white people of South Africa have to endure 1,000 indignities. The government and the culture of South Africa is now blaming each and every one of them personally for everything bad that has ever happened in that country, ever, throughout its entire history. They're the ultimate scapegoats, and that's a very dangerous situation, because if you look at the United Nations Convention on Genocide, that's the first stage, where a group of people are singled out and they are dehumanized and they are blamed, and they're told they occupy a place of unique evil within their society, both in the present and in the past. And of course, it's you get this everywhere, don't you? In any kind of injustice, whether it's a real injustice or it's just a perceived injustice, the cry goes out that this can be healed. This injustice can be healed if only we cancel it out with another injustice. That's what feminism is. And all these other that's what affirmative action is. When South Africa is the temple of affirmative action, or positive discrimination, as it's called in Britain, which is a slightly more honest name, slightly less Orwellian. And of course, it doesn't work. You can't do that. All you get is a double dose of injustice. But there's elements within the government that are stirring up this racial hatred, and it's spilled out into this brutal campaign of farm murders. And there's a documentary called Farmlands, which I haven't had the stomach to watch it yet, but it's by Lauren Southern, the woman who's banned from Britain. And it does indicate that this is the beginnings of a genocide, and the global community is turning its back because of the cultural Marxism, because of this idea that, well, this just doesn't happen to white people. It just cannot. There's a law of physics that prevents it, and things like that, and also propaganda and other things like that related. That's a long, complicated subject, but it is happening now. There were several reasons for thinking this. Now, there was a very bad news story about this, because this is very interesting, because Donald Trump tweeted about this, and I'm very pleased he did, because he's demanded an investigation. But there's the farm murders on people call them robberies that go wrong, etc., etc. No, they're not. They're not. These are sadistic attacks, and they're organized. There's a chap called Ernst Roots. He's written a book called Kill the Boer. He's one of the directors of AfriForum. He's found out by an analysis that the methods used are those of the MK, the Umkhonto Sizwe, what they used in their prison camps on their prisoners. And this is incredibly sadistic stuff. I mean, it shows a high level of psychopathy in that society. But this is why I think it's organized, because it's exactly with the scorched earth policy in Germany, which the Soviets used when the Soviets invaded Germany in 1945. They had this scorched earth policy, and this has all been put down just to, it's just men being men, etc., etc. You know, but it's not. It is when something happens on this scale, it wouldn't happen unless it was organized, unless it was some form of, my nose is itching, some form of actual planned campaign of murder and genocide, and it is a genocide. So, for example, this is going to be harrowing to listen to, but they do things. They dispatch their victims in the most sadistic way possible, and they attack them in their farms when there's no one around. No one can save them, and you get 5 of them onto just 2 people. And they'll put them into baths of boiling water. And they can't just shoot them painlessly or something like that. They'll put them in baths of boiling water, or they'll chain them to the back of a car and just drive off and drag them along the road until they're dead. Things like that. And there's a news story which is trying to discredit what Trump said about the fact that this is a campaign of murder. And it's very obvious. Ernst Ruert has discovered that it is a genocide. It's organised. Firstly, because of statistics. Now you say that see, South Africa is a very violent society. There's a murder rate of 8 per 100,000. Compare that with Britain. Great Britain has a murder rate of 1 per 100,000. So for every 100,000 people who die, only one of them will be murdered. In South Africa, generally 8 will. Now, if you're a South African farmer, it's 100 in 100,000. That is more than 10 times the standard rate even of South Africa. And Ernst Ruert also says that he had a confession from a man in jail who was in jail for a farm murder. And this man said he was ordered to do it by the ANC. He was part of an ANC death squad. And he gave a phone number, and Ruert called it up, and it turns out it was an office in the ANC headquarters. So that's so this is a genocide. There's a guy called Dan Ruert who's looked into this, and this is by every definition a genocide. This is an official state policy of the extermination of a particular group of people within their society. Or, I mean, it doesn't have to just be murder. It can be just making their life unbearable, which is what they're doing, taking the land and subjecting them to so many violent attacks that eventually it breaks their spirit. That's a form of genocide too. And these are the people, and then Theresa May goes and dances with these people and shakes their hands. And I'll come on to that in a minute, because someone asked me in the comments section of the notice video, am I going to mention Theresa May? I am. Now, the South African government, their justification for this, their promotional material for this policy, is that they believe the land should be distributed equally to the South African people in the hope that they can create a more egalitarian form of collectivized agriculture. This is pure socialism. This is the Soviet Union. This is what Stalin did in Ukraine when he invaded Ukraine. The Soviet Union invaded Ukraine, took over the land and stole it from everyone who owned it, and gave it to, basically churned it into collectivized state farms, and everything fell apart. You know what's can be achieved if you take land away from the farmers that are in South Africa now. These are the most expert and experienced people when it comes to farming. They own the land directly and they care for it as part of their living, breathing legacy. And what's going to happen is the infrastructure is going to collapse, because people who are going to be running it, it's going to be state bureaucrats who haven't a clue what they're doing. It's like these bikes. You ever seen these public bikes that appear, these bicycles? That it's kind of tragedy of the commons situation, because you have these bicycles, and they've got them in Oxford, where they just put them on the street everywhere, and people take them, and you can use them, you can ride them. You just get your credit card and you scan it, and they'll unlock it. It's an automatic unlocking system, and you can ride it. But of course, when people are finished with them, because they don't own them, they don't treat them very well. So they scuff the tires, they throw them around the place, they scratch them, they bash them. And when they finish with them, I've seen them just lying in ditches. They don't care about them because they don't own them. People care about things they own. So state collectivization is going to result in a collapse of the infrastructure. That's very serious. In fact, when it happened in Ukraine, it resulted in the Holodomor, the Ukrainian genocide. Because it's been described as a genocide, and it was, I think, but millions of people died. And also, the South African government is incredibly corrupt, and they are totally and utterly in bed with the Chinese. And they're going to sell this land to the Chinese. And this is neo-colonialism, that word that the left loves so much. Well, it's not white people who are neo-colonialists, it's Chinese people. They're buying up as much of Southern Africa as they can at the moment. But either way, the yield from these farms is going to plummet, because the pastures are going to be fallow, the seed beds are going to be choked with weeds, the irrigation channels will clog up, the wells will dry up, and this breadbasket of Africa will go to seed. And this is going to happen. This happened in Zimbabwe in 1980, following its so-called independence. It wasn't independence. I'll say more about that in a minute. But South Africa, I was saying, it's not. You think it would learn the lessons of its northern neighbour, but it's actually deliberately repeating these errors. I think this is not just. This is actually deliberate. This is deliberate vandalism. It's a deliberate destruction of that country. And what's going to happen is there's going to be famine. There's going to be economic collapse, because Food surplus exports make up 12% of South Africa's gross domestic product. That's £9 billion a year. That's going to go. And the people are going to want to go, and they're going to have to go. They're going to have to leave because they won't have any food. And since 1980, actually, a quarter of Zimbabwe's population have fled, both white and black. They fled the country. And when South Africa falls down into this same hellhole, that's the same thing's going to happen. There's going to be a massive refugee crisis here. As I said, South Africa has 54 million people. It's the second most populous country in Africa after Nigeria. And there's probably going to be a civil war because of this folly. And now we come on to Theresa May, yes. Now, when she was dancing with these school kids, she was dancing with these school kids, making a complete fool out of herself, and dancing with some children who, in a few years' time, are going to be starving. They won't be able to find enough to eat because of this, which she's supporting. She said, her response was to. She passionately drifted towards expropriation without compensation. On the face of it, she said, the UK has for some time now supported land reform, and I welcome the comments that President Ramaphosa has made about the approaching land reform. And then she tried to backpedal, she said, because it seemed to be an endorsement, then she backpedaled. She said it was an off-the-cuff remark. This is another, that little catchphrase, isn't it? Off the cuff. But she said the UK has for some time supported land reform that is legal, that is transparent, and is generated through a democratic process. Yeah, well, the democratic process is an ANC supermajority that was partly created through terrorism, through Winnie Mandela necklacing communities that refused to vote for the ANC. That's how the ANC achieved their supermajority, by terrifying the hell out of people who wouldn't vote for them. But she added a caveat, bearing in mind the economic social consequences. Well, they don't care. But Theresa May pledged £4 billion in foreign investment, but she didn't say where this investment was coming from. And presumably she means state foreign aid. Well, that's not going to be enough. That's not going to save people from starvation. And who's going to invest in a country where the infrastructure is going down the toilet and the entire economy is going to collapse? I mean, so she must mean state foreign aid. And Trump is looking into this. He's investigating via the US Embassy about the farm murders and things like that. And you might wonder why they're doing it, because you could say, well, they're just incompetent. They're just foolish. That's why they're doing it. But there's a limit on how incompetent and stupid you can be by accident. And I think this is more than that. I think this is probably something connected to the roads network as well. Now, Dan, this is because the government of South Africa is every bit as much a globalist front as it was beforehand, before when there was apartheid. Now, Dan Ruert, the man I said earlier, he's doing a very, very good thing. He's trying to get the South African government prosecuted for genocide in the Court of Human Rights, the International Court of Human Rights in Geneva. And he said something very interesting, because in 1977, Henry Kissinger visited South Africa, and he met with the South African foreign minister, someone called Dr. Dawie de Villiers. Now, Dawie de Villiers is famous for being a rugby player, but he was the captain of the Springboks, the South African rugby team. But he became a government minister when his career ended in rugby. But Kissinger said that the country's government would be turned over to the ANC within 10 years. Well, he was out by 3 years, just 3 years. And at a higher level, there's this is a cult. This is, I said, this is the Illuminati at work, and various proto-Illuminati dark forces are operating in South Africa. And I do very much recommend an interview which David Icke did with Credo Mutwa. It's very long. It's over 6 hours long. It's really worth seeing, because he talks about this. He talks about the reptilians, the Chitauri, who are basically the beings which look human, but they are in fact archons. They're like the archons. These are people who are essentially human forms of the archons. And Cradle Mutua talks about the Men in Black. Now, they had the Men in Black in Southern Africa. They call them the Beasts of the Terrible Blanket. And he tells a story about how an Archon king was selected for Lesotho, this little landlocked country in the middle of South Africa. King Moshoeshoe, who was originally called a little boy called Dipogo, which means the shameful one. And the Lesotho area had been ruled by a good man, a natural non-Archon king called King Moslomi. And the Beast of the Terrible Blanket took Dipogo to King Moslomi and said that King Moslomi had to step aside and make room for King Moshoeshoe, who was this boy, Dipogo. It's a long story, but I recommend watching that interview because it may give you some perspective on why that part of the world is in such a terrible situation, when really it potentially could be, it has the potential to be enormously wealthy and enormously stable. It has, like I said, the best farmland on earth. It has gold, it has diamonds. In fact, the Globalist network operates through the diamond industry and the gold industry, like the London Rhodesia network. It's called the Rhodes Network after Cecil Rhodes. And De Beers. Now, there's a place, this is all organised, believe it or not, this whole thing is organised from Oxford, right where I am now, at Rhodes House. The Rhodes Network is based there. I've done an entire video on that, but I hope, all I can do is I hope that sanity and justice returns to that troubled land, just to save it from this tragedy, because it's going to devastate that country, it's going to devastate the region, it's going to devastate the world beyond. Okay, so I'll just go through some of these comments. So thanks for the few comments, guys. I see it's been busy, a lot of comments in the comments box. I'll go through as many of these as I can. So so I just want to say hello to everyone who's joined. All right. What's this? This is Theresa May endorses ethnic cleansing in South Africa, but a man who puts a piece of bacon on a mosque doorknob in the UK got 6 months in jail and committed suicide. Yeah, that was an awful thing. I thought that's completely over the top. But this guy was jailed for he put a bacon sandwich on the door to a mosque. Yeah, that was a mean thing to do, but it was a bit of just really a silly prank. I mean, did he really deserve to go to jail for that? And Tina Silver, the Sun, used to have a bounty on them, £50. You could get a license and shoot one. Oh my God! Yeah, that's a sound thing. Run, good evening, Run. Edwardian lady, hi Edwardian lady, how are you? And Steve says Rhodes was Illuminati. He was, yeah. No dogs, no Irish, says Mr. Mann. Good evening, Julian. Diego Rivera, Israel has always had connections to South Africa. And the Edwardian lady says the Chinese own Africa. Well, they certainly own a lot of it, and they're going to buy up this land that's been taken from the farmers, and that there are various corrupt people within the South African government are going to do it. Mr. Mann, Einstein was a fraud. I don't know what that's got to do with this, Mr. Mann, but I've heard things about Einstein, yeah, and that he was not what he said he was and stuff like that. Diego Rivera says South Africa was among the 33 states that voted in favour of the 1947 UN partition plan, recommending the establishment of a Jewish state in Palestine. That's right, yeah, they started with the Balfour Agreement, but to establish this state, which of course is not a Jewish state, it is the Zionist fiefdom. A lot of Jews are against it. Ben Grizzly says, what talk radio are we talking about? All right, it's just put in talk radio. It's Tina Silver says, the Howard Hughes show. Not the one who made the planes, yeah. Zephyrin Cochran, good evening. That's right, 10 p.m. I'll just better check my emails because I've got to keep my phone on the hook as well because of the producer might want to call me. It is online and DAB. Yes, it is. Thanks, Anthony and Ben Grizzly. Yeah. Is James Whale still on TalkSport? I used to love his shows because he was like Howard. He had David Icahn and people like that. And he had Timothy Good. He did some brilliant interviews with Timothy Good, the ufologist. James Whale, yeah, he was really good. Diego Rivera. Is that right? Because he says Israeli and South African intelligence chiefs held regular conferences with each other. Yes, that's Mossad you're talking about here. Yeah. Oh, they've sacked James Whale. That's a shame. That's it, because I really thought he was good. Tina says South Africa recognises Iranians as white, so got their oil in return for supplying items not obtainable due to the embargo, and letting any Iranians move there and live there as white people. The Iranians actually are. You can see racially they are, well, like the Europeans. They're very similar racially. James Whale show used to be good. Yeah, they had Timothy Good. I mentioned, yeah, Timothy Good. You remember him too, Tim, and Georgina Bruni. Yeah. Stephen, homeless truth seeker, says, I remember watching a TV program with Bill Clinton and Mandela, and they were eating at the outside table, and Clinton was saying he'd come to take his orders. All right. By 1980, says Diego, a sizable contingent of South African military and government officials were living permanently in Israel to oversee numerous joint projects. That's interesting. Phil Hainsworth, hello. Respect from Nottingham. How are you, Phil? In 1987, Israel found itself the only developed nation in the world that still maintains strong, even strategic relations with South Africa. Right, yeah. And South Africa provided much of the yellow cake uranium that Israel here required to develop its nuclear weapons. And South Africa built its own nuclear bombs with Israeli assistance. Yeah. That's interesting. The Israel state is based on eugenics. It is an ethno-state, this info, yeah. And Anthony Moore said, I'd rather talk about UFOs. Anthony, I will be returning to UFOs. Don't worry. I will. I always return to UFOs. Tina says, albino African children used to be caught and used in black magic in Africa. I've heard about that. That was because that's I'm sure Craig Mutwa would know about that, because he said he talked about the sangomas, the dark sangomas, because he's a sangoma, which is like a shaman. But he says they were black sorcerers as well. He called them sorcerers, the dark sangomas. And there's also a lot of superstition in Africa associated with it, albinos, people with no skin pigment, because they look very different. They stand out a lot more than they would in Europe, where there are light-skinned people. But in Africa, where people are dark-skinned, they really stand out considerably. Mr. Mann, anyone looking for the truth of World War II, check out the 10-part series Europa, The Last Battle, epic. Someone was talking about that on Facebook. I've not watched it yet. I mean, I watched Hellstorm, which was, again, it totally destroys the myth of the good war, the just war, the finest hour, etc., etc. But I will watch that at some point. But I didn't mention the Soviet scorched earth policy in Germany in 1945, which was horrific. Phil says, when you're free to give me of Oxford, my friend, you're free at the weekend to give me a tour of Oxford. Well, Phil, if you want to come down, I won't be free for a while, not for a couple of months, but be good to meet you sometime. Diego says, instead of supporting Trump, Ben, you should be supporting Jeremy Corbyn in his defense of the Palestinians. Well, Diego, that is something that I think Corbyn has got right. I mean, there's this awful, ridiculous nonsense about him being anti-Semitic. The thing is, almost everything is anti-Semitic now. David Icke is anti-Semitic. I'm going to go and see David Icke in November up in Newcastle. I don't know where it's going to be, because the venue is a secret address where I'll only be told where it is very close at the time. You know why? Because of bloody Antifa and the SJWs are protesting against him because they say he's anti-Semitic. And Jeremy Corbyn, there's no evidence that Jeremy Corbyn is not anti-Semitic. Jeremy Corbyn's got nothing against Jews. Is this the same thing like this ridiculous thing like Ken Livingstone being anti-Semitic? Do you remember that? And Jeremy Corbyn actually was protesting against the removal of that anti-New World Order mural by Mier 1 in East London. Do you remember that mural? I wrote an article about it, about the guy sitting around the Monopoly board. You know what I mean? And there's the pyramid with the eye and the capstone above them. Right? Apparently that is anti-Jewish, and I can't for the life of me see why that has anything to do with Jews, quite frankly. But Corbyn said that was an awful thing to remove it, and I agree with him, because it was only up there for a few weeks, and then was obliterated because they said it was anti-Semitic, and it's crazy. So it was anything to do with conspiracies and about the New World Order is anti-Semitic. And if you say, like I did a whole video about this, if you say, well, it's not the Jews who are doing the New World Order, someone will come along and say, well, you're using code. You're using code. What you actually really mean is the Jews are doing the New World Order. You can't win. Thanks, Disinfo. Excellent stream so far. On the road, why is it bad to be racist without hate? Well, on the road, you can't be racist without hate. Racism is hatred. So it's a contradiction. So I'm not sure what you mean there. Anyway, Diego Rivera says the Israeli attacks on Corbyn are a disgrace. Yes, they are. I mean, I don't agree with everything Jeremy Corbyn stands for. I wouldn't vote for him, but I don't believe he hates Jews. I mean, it's ridiculous to think that he hates Jews. He doesn't. Hi, Sorenable. How are you? Villanora, hello. How are you? Anyone who dares to stand up against the Marxist agenda will be shouted down and called fascists, Nazis, etc. Yes, so that's what they call me. That's what they call David. They call everyone that now. They use the same tactic in Soviet Russia for those who criticised the Politburo. That's true. The words, the very word, I think, racist, was actually coined by Leon Trotsky, the head of the Red Army in the I think it was in the Russian Civil War. And he used it in the same false way that it's used today, basically for instance, white people who were said, well, I like being white. I think white people are good. You know, that's racist. That means you hate non-white people. You see. On the road, weren't the San nomadic? Yes, they were. But if you're referring to the terra nullius situation, because this is what was used in Australia. Because when the land was seized from the Aborigines in Australia. They use this thing called terra nullius, which means nobody's land, and it's because they didn't farm it because they were hunter-gatherers. Well, this was dragged through several international courts, and it was found to be not unsustainable because you still have rights to the land even if you're a hunter-gatherer. But the point of the matter is we're not talking about. When we're talking about the appropriation of land by white people or the moving in of white people into various lands, we're not talking about land where there were only hunter-gatherers. We're talking about lands which were uninhabited. There were literally no people there. They literally were not. When the Dutch settlers moved in, the Voortrekkers, they came to land which was empty. There was no one living there when they arrived. Hugo Roon, hi Hugo. I'll try and be aware when you're talking to me and not to others at this time. The Palestinians are Semites too. Yeah, well, Semit is a Semitic languages, aren't they? Like Arabic and Hebrew are related. They have similar words like shalom and salam. They both mean peace. On the road, the San only settled once the whites created wealth. Yeah, well, it's more accurate to say that the civilization built by the white people in South Africa really favored against the nomadic lifestyle. So it created a civilization where it's better to stay in one place. You see the same thing with gypsies in Europe. They did the same thing. Jews and Palestinians are just as bad as each other. Well, Jews, I don't know where Jews don't have anything to do with this. Israel and Jew is two different things. Do you mean the Israelis and Palestinians are just as bad as each other? Yes, Semitic. Tina Silva says Semitism. That's right. The whole thing is about Semitic. And Hugo Roon says Malta is a Semitic country. Jordan, Syria, Lebanon, and many more. Not anymore. Well, Hugo, they speak a Semitic language there. Maltese is a Semitic language. It's related to Arabic. There's a Semitic language called Amharic spoken in Ethiopia. So all across North Africa, you get Arabic, and then you have Amharic. They're all Semitic languages. On the road says, Ben, what do you think of Max Egan's great mud flood theory? I don't know about that. I mean, I haven't looked at what Max Egan has said about that. I've watched a lot of Max's stuff, but not that. Mr. Mann says, hopefully he's enjoying eternal hellfire with Churchill. Do you mean George Soros or was it Peter Sutherland? Yeah. Well, probably, yeah. Diego Rivera, do you still support the Chit? No, I don't. On the road, Mandela was a Rhodes member. Well, the actual institution is now called the Rhodes Mandela Trust. That's where the Rhodes Scholars go. Vrillon always says, I can't watch Farmland, it would do my head in. Well, you know what, Vrillon, I've not watched it yet. I've watched The Last of the Boers by Mel V, and that was upsetting enough. And Diego Rivera says, you would make a good white farmer, Ben. I don't know the first thing about farming, I'm afraid. I know I come from the countryside originally. I'm from West Wales, but I'm not a farmer. Mr. Mann said, let the farmers max escalate back to the UK. We need the numbers. Oh, well, hopefully hopefully we can save them in their own, as with all immigration. The solution is better if we can find a solution in the land they come from rather than moving them out. And On the Road says, he's not reading comments. Do you mean me? Yeah, I am now On the Road. Yeah, I was just reading the lead off. Yeah, where are we now? Diego Rivera, I've never met a nice South African. Wasn't that a song? Is it Spitting Image? I've never met a nice South African. I met South Africans. Edwardian says we should swap the Africans in the country with the white South African farmers. Well, Edwardian lady, if you did that, then the thing is that it would be difficult to persuade people to do that willingly. Firstly, I doubt if people, I mean, I understand the problems with immigration enormously, and I think it's a bad idea. But for people possibly not from South Africa to go to South Africa in a situation where it's descending into famine and civil war probably wouldn't be possible. And as for the white South African farmers, they're not going to give up their land. They will die for their land. You listen to these people talking. They will, and in fact, a lot of them are preparing for a civil war. And I don't blame them. In their situation, I would too, because I think it looks like a civil war is going to come. And in their situation, I would too. I'd be arming myself. I'd be training. I'd be doing all these things. Yeah. And Theresa May, Mr. goes there and does the C-3PO shuffle. What a ridiculous old cow she is. What a ridiculous, idiotic old woman she is. And she's got the nerve to stand there and dance with children who her endorsement of a policy that could well kill them. And she's sitting there dancing with these young kids. TM has zero charisma and is a great appeaser. Well, yeah, she is. And I'll tell you what, at the moment, I mean, I'm glad, hopefully there won't be an election for a while, because God knows what will happen if there's an election now, because either she would win or we'd have Labour, and Labour would be Jeremy Corbyn, and Jeremy Corbyn wouldn't be Prime Minister for long. There would be, Diane Abbott's knife would be in his back in no time. It would be an Ides of March situation, and we'd have a Diane Abbott as our Prime Minister. Oh, God. I'd flee the country if Diane Abbott was ever our Prime Minister, because she, any white person I'd say is in serious trouble if Diane Abbott's Prime Minister. So what I hope will happen is that perhaps with the 2016 effect, and we'll perhaps generate a situation where we can have perhaps a decent government. Maybe the Tories will be taken over by a decent person, maybe Jacob Rees-Mogg or somebody, who will push Brexit through. Because any Tory leader who said, I'm going to do Brexit properly, they'd win. That's it. That's hands down. That will really get people winning behind them. If they don't, if they keep May, then there's going to be a hung parliament, or Labour will get a majority. Oh, God. Either way, either Theresa May will get back in again, probably with the help of the Democratic Unionists and nut jobs, or it'll be Jeremy Corbyn. It'll be Jeremy Corbyn leading the way for a Diane Abbott government. Either way, it'll be a nightmare. Hey, hi, Armand Adams. Hello. Hi, Armand. Nice to see you. Be careful of that spoon in your cup. Oh, people warn me about this. Yeah, because it's not hot, though. It's not hot. Hi, Emma. Tina Silver says, the farmers grow coffee, flowers, French beans, and crops that will feed the local population. They really, honestly, those farms, like I said, Africa could feed the world. It really could. And let alone itself. But they won't, because you either get these like ridiculous Bonapartist type Marxist regimes, or you get like corporate takeovers and globalist occupation of various parts of it. It's awful. Disinfo says, for an excellent documentary on the Holodomor, check out my channel for Harvest of Despair. Thanks, Disinfo. The pesticides used on flowers has poisoned the lakes. Yeah, the pesticide things. The pesticide thing is awful, and there's also, like I said, if they use terra preta, then it won't be necessary. Villanora says, when they did the same thing in Zimbabwe, they all starved. That's right. If you want to know what South Africa will look like in 10 years' time with this policy in place, if it goes through, look at what Zimbabwe is like now. Mr. Mann says, no white farmers, starvation in Bongo land. You're quoting Godfrey Bloom, Mr. Mann. Bongo land. Now, everyone had a go at Godfrey Bloom when he said Bongo land, and he probably didn't. But it's funny though, because he obviously went it as a sort of insult to refer to some sort of very backward tin pot kind of African country, but the African people themselves were quite flattered, because a bongo land in Africa, in many parts of Africa, actually means a place where lots of intelligent people live, because the word bongo in many Niger-Congo languages means brain. So like Zulu and Xhosa, there's various different versions of it, but it means a brain. And bongo land is a place which is known for the intelligentsia. The African intelligentsia will actually live in a place, and it'll be nicknamed Bongo land. So Godfrey Bloom actually didn't know it, but he was actually being polite and he was being complimentary. Tina Silva says, most South Africans eat mealie pop. They can't afford meat. Yeah. Well, mealie pop actually has B17 in, on nitrilicide. If you ever watch David Ray Griffin's World Without Cancer, they eat that with B17. Steve, GM food agendas. I'm sure this will. When the Chinese take over, you can bet that they will use it for GM crops, because China is a place where you can grow anything GM and there's no restrictions at all. Edwardian lady says the Chinese will step in when it all falls apart. Yeah, they will, and they'll take it over, and they won't give a damn. They'll start growing GM crops there, and that'll poison the environment. That'll poison the people. Run says the left wing. Those left-wing socialists in the city of Oxford, yeah, they have a supermajority Labour there. MP is someone called Annalisa Dodds, who is, well, female Labour MP, left-wing feminist. Oh, she's awful. And the bikes, those bikes. Thing is, I work a lot in Italy. I don't know if you're familiar with Oxford Run, but you know what? Italy has those like drainage ditches going through, leading to the River Isis. They're full of those bikes. They're just lying there. People just finish using them and they throw them in there. Mr. Mann says Chinese will probably appropriate all the indigenous wildlife for erectile dysfunction medicines. Oh, God, yeah. Well, they're already doing it with rhino's horns, aren't they, Mr. Mann? I mean, the rhino, one of the reasons the rhino's dying out is because the bloody Chinese are taking them for their ridiculous. Well, it's not traditional Chinese medicine. It's Chinese modern quackery. I've lost my place again. It keeps doing that. Oh God, the chat box is really annoying, because every time here we are. Right, Tina Silva said Gaddafi had a major project to transport massive lakes under the desert water around. It's right, Tina, and he also wanted to bring in a gold standard economy and trade oil in gold. And yeah, because there's huge aquifers underneath the Sahara Desert. The Sahara Desert looks dry, and the Sahara Desert is dry on the surface, Tina. But well, you've been to Egypt a lot. You know what it's like. But underneath the sand, underneath the ground, there are huge aquifers, underground lakes. And Gaddafi basically wanted to mine that water and bring it up, and you could use it to irrigate the land. You could use it. People could drink it. You could irrigate farmland with it. Massive amount of fresh water. That's why he was killed. That's why he kissed George Bush's ass. And what did he get in return? Once he started not playing ball, they invaded the country and they dragged him out, and a lynch mob basically kicked the crap out of him in the street. Armand Adams says, I wonder if the De Beers will lose their diamond mines. Well, they haven't yet, Armand, because they're connected to this roads network. Master Man says Zuckerberg is Data of Star Trek. Not as intelligent, unfortunately. Diego Rivera inevitably has to make the British Bigfoot comment. Get the English Bigfoot to till the land. Diego Rivera, I'm Chitahuri, am I? Neptune, hello Neptune. Welcome. Glad you could make it. I hope you might be because we're going a bit earlier. I hope the dogs are all right, Neptune. RTZ, the Queen, is a major shareholder. Is it? All right. Well, she has shares in everything else, including Denver Airport and places like that. Diego Rivera, you should be defending Corbyn and not support Zionist Donald Trump. Now, I've been through this with you before, Diego. Trump, I think, is doing what he has to. He is being threatened, but I think he'll hopefully kick back against them. I'm all right, thanks, Phil. I hope you're all right too. What am I discussing with Howard later, says Steve of 71? I don't know yet. I think I'm just going to give them. I sent them a brief bio. They haven't contacted me, have they? And so he can just build on that, I think. Europa, the last battle, Mr. Man. I haven't yet, but I'm going to. Basically, Hitler was a nice bloke. Oh, well, I don't know about that, but he certainly wasn't. He wasn't quite the monster he's been portrayed as. And the thing about it is, you see Hitler as the ultimate evil, and Churchill as nice old Uncle Joe, Stalin as the good guys, and of course that's not true. That's not true at all. It was not the just war. I mean, the position of Hitler was a bit more complicated. I think he did seem to have some connections to, say, the Bank of England and stuff like that, which makes me think it's possible he rebelled against them. I don't know, but he like many people, like many people in history, he was a mortal human being. Whereas history tends to portray people as either as angels or devils. Edison was a plagiarist, says Mr. Matt. Diego Rivera, they're banning freedom of speech in the Labour Party. They are, aren't they? Hello, Luke. Good evening. Comrade Stalin was a nice bloke. Oddly enough, Vrillon, I came across a talk by this guy called Grover Furr. I always remember it because it was a really, really weird name. Grover Furr. But he's trying to rehabilitate Stalin now. Oh, and good luck. Oh, well, Mr. Man, I'll check out what you got on your channel. All right. Diego Rivera, free Nelson Mandela. Well, Nelson Mandela is now with Umgulu Ngulu, the Great Spirit. History is written by the liars. Yeah. I only believe in Dr. Judy Wood. Well, Vrillon, as far as 9/11 goes, yeah, absolutely. Tina says there is a secret African Jewish sect called the Falashas, which Israel got airlifted from Africa. Is that all right? It's interesting. I know there are like Jewish people in Africa. I know like Yaphet Kotto, the actor, who was in Alien, and he was the bad guy in James Bond once. He was really cool. I mean, he's originally from Cameroon. His family from Cameroon, but he grew up in the United States. But they were Jewish. And interestingly about Yaphet Kotto, at the age of 71, he came out as an alien abductee. Nelson invented the Mandela effect. Yes. Ben's headboard looks like there's a face on it. Oh my goodness me! I think that's the monster, like in The Exorcist. I think it's. Hi Winslow, welcome Winslow. I'm feeling all right. I've been accused of being even Ben has been accused of being an anti-Semite. I have, yeah. I have, like Tristan Swale. I had to threaten Tristan Swale, with legal action because of the things he was saying about me, calling me a racist and stuff like that. Because that's the sort of thing I can get back to my clients. My daughter was applying for college, could get to her tutors, And the mud like that sticks. Mr. Man, everything the bloody Khazar Jews. It's not the Jews. Zionists are not Jews. Jews are not Zionists. Watch my video, The Jews. Bonto Max, hello. Is Slaxer the dreaded Droik? No. Slaxer's not Droik. I know who Droik is. I found out. I've done a video about that. If you watch, it's called Confronting Droik. You can watch it. the Khazars are fake Jews. I don't know. What's a real Jew then, Tina? Is that a Sephardic Jew? Cosmic Claire, GC may not hate Jews, but he's a bit too keen on Islam for my liking. Yeah, he is. He is an appeaser of the radical Islamists, which is very worrying because this Claire, so I've talked to you before about this, Claire, but the government are basically establishing radical Islam in Britain for a long-term strategic psychological warfare purpose. I think they want a civil war, and Corbyn is unfortunately behind it. But he's going along with it. Whether he may, I don't know if he's actually an organizer, but he's an appeaser of it, which is very worrying for me. Yeah. Villanora, they are the paymasters for the politicians. Who's that? Oh, you found Talk Radio, Ben. Good. Vrillon, no, apparently James Whale has been sacked, which is a great shame because his stuff was brilliant. James Whale was so good. And like I said, he had David Icke on his show. He had some brilliant interviews with Timothy Good, and really, really good. Mr. Mann says diversity, transgenderism, atomizations, the traffic family, pro-gayness, all orchestrated by Khazars to destroy Europe. Now, it's not by Khazars, it's the Illuminati. And as far as the traditional family, yeah. And now gayness, now you're talking about homosexuality. Homosexuality is an inevitable part of life. I think what you might mean is this very radical, aggressive promotion of homosexuality as when it's violent, it can become quite sort of violent and aggressive. Like you get these marches where they wave dildos and things, which are very tasteless and very crude. Things like that. If you mean that, that's different. Yeah, I mean they seem to be very tolerant of that kind of thing, which I don't think they should be. I don't mind gay pride parades. They happen in Brighton all the time, and they're tasteful. They're not. You don't get people blowing up condoms and lobbing them about the place. But I don't like. I don't like it when they do get vulgar like that. And if you object to that vulgarity, sometimes you get called a homophobe, and I think that's wrong. It's not fair. Villanora, you'll have a hate mob on you. Diego Rivera. Is Craig Mutwar in jail? And he's very old. He's 97 years old. But bloody damn. Hang on. Mutwar is a CIA asset. Yes. Neptune. How do you know that? I mean, you might have watched Richard D. Hall talking about this. I've actually written. Have you read my review of the thing on David Icke on the Rich Planet show? Because I do like a review of that. Winslow Burdett. Whatever happened to Leon Trotsky? He got an ice pick. That made my ears burn. He did, yeah. I mean, this is. I talked before about Russians and about what they do to dissidents. And in 1940, they tracked down Leon Trotsky. He was hiding out in Mexico, and they put an ice pick through his head. And that's the most public of these various executions that the Russians used to carry out against dissidents, which is why this rubbish about Sergei Skripal was that he's some kind. The Russians wanted him dead is nonsense. If they wanted him dead, he'd been dead long ago. Johnny Cowpatch, hello. No, I know my ultimate nightmare would be Diane Abbott as Prime Minister. Yeah. Whatever happened to the Stranglers? I don't know. Spoon clang seems to. That's my noise. Yeah, it's just that noise. I don't know. I don't remember this very well. Isn't the weather in the UK? Just trying to lighten the mood. Well, it's been nice today, Phil. And Neptune says it's raining where he is. Dry with clouds. It's dry and it's warm where I am. Diego Rivera says, what is your solution, Ben, to the South Africa question? Well, I think the roads network has to be exposed. And maybe the 2016 effect will sort that out. I don't know. But if that doesn't work, I honestly don't know what we can do. I don't know why. I don't know. Neptune says the Burren is covered in mist. Is that in Ireland, Neptune? Oh. Do you use OBS, Ben? OBS, what's that? I don't know what that is, Armand. Phil, Velcro, what a rip-off. Very good. OBS, he could pull up OBS, he could pull up web pages. Do you mean like having an admin in the chat? Crafty Nihilist. No wonder they need rhino horn for erectile dysfunction. They are marrying robots. Well, in China, they're embracing all this new electronic stuff, including the robot sexual partners, which is just I don't know. It's just like a very elaborate sex toy, really. Villanora, Stalin up here with flat Earth. Ironman Spartan, hello. What's my favourite tipple? I like cider and wine and things like that. I'm very keen on those things. Ron says, very familiar with Ifley, Ben. Not only the bikes are left outside the Trout pub in Wolvercote by drinkers who are too drunk to ride them home. You see, I've not been up to the Trout for a long time, Ron, but I know there's a lot of problems with that because I see them in the city centre. The bikes are they pile up. You see, they just pile up and they get in the way. They're all over the pavements because no one owns them. I think they're just going to have to leave them. They're just going to leave them there. And then it's bad, isn't it? Tina says, for a full lecture on who the Khazar. All right, what's that, Tina? What's that lecture? Run says, just remember, St Giles Fair plus the roads works on the Woodstock Road are going to make life hell for people driving to the city centre next week. That's true. If you look at, there's signboards everywhere saying that basically those roads are going to be closed for a few days. Happens every year. The St Giles's Fair has been going for about 300 years, and it's quite good fun if you're a kid, I suppose, but it's difficult, like getting in and getting around the place. Tina Silva, white vid by Jack Otto, who was murdered for giving this lecture. All right, I'll check that out, Tina. Thanks. Neptune Return says James Whale had a television program back in the 80s. I remember that when I was like, yeah, he used to do this like late night show. I stayed up and watched it a couple of times. And he always used to have controversy on there, isn't it? MS1G says straight pride parade. Oh, you can't do that. You're not allowed to be pride. You're not allowed to have that. It's like white pride, or men's pride. It's not allowed. Although, whenever I hear straight pride, I always think of that film Bruno with Sacha Baron Cohen, where he does that thing in that wrestling match. He goes, straight pride, straight pride. It's quite funny. D Hall's last installment was a bit iffy. People have recommended that to me. It's the one where he talks to that guy who does the that magazine. Yeah, I've not seen it yet. I'm just not had time. Where are we? Cosmic Claire. You used to watch James Whale in the 80s. I thought it was pretty good. Neptune Return says the reptile thing is a CIA psyop. I don't think so, Neptune. Have you look at my review of the thing Hall did on it, Richard Hall, of the Rich Planet show? I don't think it is a CIA psyop. This has been suggested by many people, most recently by Richard on Rich Planet and Andrew Johnson, and I did a review of it. Diego Rivera says Leon Trotsky had an affair with Frida Kahlo in Mexico. He was Jewish, right? And he was Jewish. Yeah, I don't know who's Frida Kahlo. I don't know who she is, but he used to put it about a bit, I think. And Steve 071, Tata Ben, you're going. Okay, thanks for posting, Steve. Ironman Spartan says the Germans had an Antarctic secret research facility before and during World War II. Some think they found a crashed UFO. Well, Ironman, they certainly did have a location in Antarctica. If you ever see the things I've done about Jack of the Antarctic, watch my videos about Jack of the Antarctic. I've done 2 of those, I think, and I go into that in detail. But they certainly managed to get hold of technology, anti-gravity, free energy technology. There was it's a very interesting story. And what happened at the end of the war is unknown, but we know that they were doing advanced tests of various craft. There was the Halnabu craft, which was built by Skoda in what's now the Czech Republic, and they were actually doing live tests from the Skoda factory in Prague, and they managed to get something that could shoot up to 15,000 feet almost instantly. So you can make as much jokes as you like about their cars, but the Skoda Works were possibly one of the first commercial producers of an anti-gravity free energy device. But what happened was after Nazi Germany was destroyed at the end of the war, the victorious Allies, expropriated this technology, back to their own countries, including the scientists, the Nazi scientists, and they continued to work on it back then. Cosmic Clay, what about Chemnitz and the European fight back? Yeah, that's it's actually it's encouraging to see people standing up, Claire. It really is. I mean, there's been a lot of trouble. There's been trouble there, but a lot of the trouble's been caused by Antifa. I don't know the facts about what happened with the murder, but it appears to be there's some migrants behind it, and I understand why people are upset by that. I understand because whatever, I don't know what actually happened there, but it appears that some migrants were behind this, and the German people are fed up with this. They can see through this. They realise what's happening. They realise that the immigration agenda is part of this agenda to destroy Europe. It's part of the Kalergi plan. I mean, I know that's the case, and I don't feel any resentment to anyone. I don't hate anyone. I live with 2 Sudanese men. They're Muslims, and they're lovely guys. But it is the actual purpose of bringing these people into the country is to serve this international globalist agenda, and it has to stop. And people realise it has to stop, and they're fed up with Merkel. I mean, Merkel is still in power. She's in her 3rd term. She's holding on to it just through some crooked coalition, but she's still there, and they can't get rid of this old cow who was a former East German communist. And did I say former? And they're just, and people are just really fed up with it. They've just had enough, you know. And the Antifa, and all they can do, the only response from the left is to call everyone who says this a racist, and say they call them haters. It's absurd. So I mean, I saw Morgoth. I mean, Morgoth did a thing about the Chemnitz issue, and he said it's very ironic because the Antifas were all collecting around the Karl Marx statue, because they got a big Karl Marx memorial statue in Chemnitz, and it's just crazy because it used to be called Karl Marx City during the communist era, but Karl Marx didn't live there. They just decided to name a city after Karl Marx, and because this was a big industrial center, they thought, let's just call that Karl Marx City. And he says that's ironic because Karl Marx is not a German national figure. His philosophy is alien to the European people, which it is. And yeah, it's Neptune Return says Whale wouldn't be allowed on TV now. I honestly don't think he would, you know. Patio doors, says Mr. Mann. The Irish double glazing sounds. Patio doors. Woody Black, hello. OBS's video streaming program. Oh, thanks. I didn't know that. I mean, I'm using the YouTube house system now because they finally have one. And Natural Return says, hang on, I've lost my place again. Patio chandelier. He swings off the ceiling. Very good. Mr. Man says, don't get it. Oh, honestly, Mr. Man. Went right over your head, didn't it? Chandelier. As the late, great Frankie Howard used to say, please yourselves. Frida Kahlo was a famous artist. All right, Tina. All right. And she bunched up with old Red Leon. All right. Diego Rivera, are the Illuminati's aliens? Yes. At a higher level, yes, they are. If you describe aliens as like the Archons, then yes. This doesn't mean that humans can't be involved in the Illuminati. They can. But at a high level, they are Illuminati. They are Archons. They are archonic manifestations in our universe through what looks like human bodies. Frida Kahlo had a German father. Okay. A famous Mexican artist. Married to Diego Rivera. Oh, really? She was married to you, Diego? How old are you then? Must be pretty elderly. And Tina Sell, check out Man at the Crossroads, the greatest painting by Diego Rivera. Diego Rivera, do you name yourself after the artist? Is that it? Neptune turns says, what about Tarkovsky? Do you mean Andrei Tarkovsky, the film director? My nose is itching. Sorry, it always does when I talk. Yeah, I mean, I like things like Solaris, which is a really, really good, like, it's like a very Stanley Kubrick-like space movie. It's based on a book. And there was another adaptation with George Clooney, which was rubbish. And there was Stalker's a good one, because have you read the book The Roadside Picnic? It's really good. And The Stalkers, it's just not an adaptation of the book, but it's inspired by it. It's from the same kind of world. Lenore de Castile. Hello, Lenore de Castile. Frida Kahlo had an affair to married Leon Trotsky when Frida Kahlo was also married. Oh. MS1G. Ben, does your radio show go on Thursdays? Yes, it does. 8 p.m. 8 p.m., not 9. 8 p.m. British time. Mr. Man, Kalergi was another Khazar motherfucker. Khazar, I mean, this is the thing about the Khazarian Empire and things like that, and the Ashkenazim and stuff like that. It's not the real Illuminati. I explain that in my Jews video. Crafty Nihilist. Frida Kahlo was one of my favorite artists, treated like crap by Diego Rivera. She was a better artist than him also. Oh, that's a shame. Crafty Nihilist. Tina Silver says the EU want to instigate national service. I think they want to instigate EU service, Tina. Not it's nothing to do with nations when it comes to the EU. There's the European superstate, the dictatorship, the continental dictatorship, and its member states. There's no way I'd ever serve them. I hope people will rebel against it. Villon Aura says, and I've lost my place again. It just keeps slipping. It just goes, once a commie, always a commie. Well, not necessarily, Villon. I mean, believe it or not, when I first started out at the hospital, I was a rabid table thumping trade unionist. And I wasn't actually a commie. I didn't understand what Marxism was, but I had a sympathy. I understood. I had a basic overview of it, and it seemed attractive to me, and I sympathized with it. So yeah, people can change. People can change their mind on things. David Schultz says Diego Rivera knows Frida Kahlo. Yeah, I mean, Diego Rivera is someone who posted in this chat box. But you were talking about someone different. Obviously, you're talking about an artist from yesteryear. Lenore de Castile says, maybe Diego Rivera didn't like Frida Kahlo having an affair with married Leon Trotsky. Well, seeing as he was her husband, that's hardly surprising, is it? Diego Rivera, communism was a scam. Yeah, Diego Rivera worked for the Rockefellers, whom we met in Russia. Yeah, of course, it was a scam, but I mean, was he a communist? Grim Regular. Hello, Grim Regular. Check out Jack Otto. I will. Okay. Diego Rivera says, Rivera was a Freemason of Jewish descent, so was Frida Kahlo. All right. Iron Spartan. Heinrich Himmler believed in occult and symbols to strengthen his soldiers. Interesting, but not sure how true that is. Well, it is true. Himmler was involved with like vril power and things like that, and he went to Tibet to discover the ancient mysteries of the magicians and people like that. And I think this may have been how the Nazis actually managed to get hold of this technology. They had a medium called Sylvia Ortiz, very interesting. She was a psychic medium who they actually used. They were using techniques like remote viewing long before anyone else did. As I said in my Helen Duncan video, well, instead of putting her in jail, they should have offered her a job. The British. Lenore de Castile says, anyone that follows and worships Karl Marx is an idiot. Yes, that's true. But they may be some people are idiots sometimes. And indeed, as I said, I was a real, I myself was a raving trade unionist at one point. I was a kind of semi-Marxist myself when I was like 18, when I first started out at the hospital. I fell in with some pretty bad people in the union, in unison, the trade union. I got wise to it very quickly, though. I mean, I was hardcore probably for less than a year. I got wise to it pretty quickly. Heinrich, yeah, Villanora, Heinrich Himmler, Hitler's #1 occult advisor, yeah. And Neptune trans Ricochet, Irish guy who bounces around. Keep him coming, Neptune. Tarkovsky was a genius, Neptune. Yes, I love his films. My mum was a big fan of his films. She kind of got me into that. Emma Jones says, Theresa May is a ridiculously embarrassing PM. Yes, she is. Emma, in every single way, shape, or form. And the fact that she hasn't been got rid of yet is really, because I did say, I said when she first got elected, she wouldn't last more than a few months because of this ridiculous coalition she had. when she threw her general election and then threw it away. Tina Silva says the EU is going to stop changing clocks twice a year. That's right. They're going to do away with daylight saving time that we have in Britain. All the more reason for us to get out of bloody Brexit, I'll tell you. No, wrong way round. To keep Brexit, to get out of the EU. Pardon me. That was a bit ambiguous, that statement. Ron says, things that make me laugh about protests in Germany is that the mainstream media said they were doing Nazi things like singing in media songs that were aimed at the MSN. No, MSN. Don't believe a single word the MSN says about anything. Lenore says, former Mexican President Vicente Fox had a German father. Current incoming president has a Basque mother. All right. Keith M says, fuck South Africa. We are, well, I've lost my place again. Hang on. We are fucked here in this country. Get your priorities right, Ben. Keith, what happens in South Africa is going to affect the whole world. Okay. And I care about what happens in other countries too. I don't like to see a country of 54 million people descending into chaos, partly because of for their own sake, but also for ours, because it's going to affect the rest of us. It's going to affect the whole world. There's going to be a massive refugee crisis out of this. And also this sort of crypto Marxist Agenda 21, collectivized farming revolution that's going on in South Africa is going to spread. It's going to be sent everywhere else. Lenore says, Lenore de Castile, I presume you're Spanish, de Castile. I'm not British, but Theresa May in South Africa was embarrassing to me too. Yeah, it's embarrassing. It would be embarrassing for me if the president of Spain did that. Mr. Mann, is Bourneville chocolate healthy? I think like all chocolate, if you eat it or drink it as drinking chocolate, if you drink it or eat it in moderation, you'll be fine. If you eat too much of it, your teeth will drop out and you'll get fat. Villanor with a shot of brandy, yeah. MS1G, Chris Dangerfield, ex-YouTuber, ex-communist. Yeah, there are a lot of people who are ex-communists. Like I said, I mean, you could have seen me when I was like 18, what I was like. Phil Hainsworth, what's going to be your next project, Ben? Anything local? Right, well, Phil, I've got a lot of things planned. I'm going to go to the UFO Truth Magazine conference. And I'm invited to speak at several places. I'll be speaking in Newcastle again. So I'm going back to Truth Seekers North and East. And I might be going to Denmark to speak there at a UFO event. And I'm hoping I've got to do some travels to see things. I'm going back to London to do some filming. And I might be going to Coral Castle. It all depends if I can sort it out with Joe Dunn of The Mindset. Which I'm hoping to do some filming at Coral Castle, which would be really great. I've always wanted to go there. Keith M says, oh, hang on, I'll go up a little bit. But Phil, I've got other things planned. I've got a list of them somewhere. I'll keep you posted. Keith M says, Theresa May's disgusting, vile, embarrassing hunchback. Yes, that's a polite thing to say about her. Mr. Mann says, the missus on her second bar excuse much. The missus on her second bar excuse much. Oh, right. Your wife's with you. Is that right, Mr. Mann? I thought it was David Schultz who had his wife with him. Okay. Vrillon Aura, I voted for Blair. Lol. Vrillon, I did in '97. It's the first time I was ever eligible to vote in an election. I voted for that tosser, and I will never forgive myself for being so stupid. Ironman Spartan, what do you think about NDE and afterlife? Well, I've done a whole video about that called The Afterlife, a reply to Stefan Molyneux. It's very interesting. I can't go into it now because it's sort of off topic and it's a big subject, but do watch that video. Leonardo Castile, make a connection between Karl Marx's acceptance of art as a profession and his communist planks of ugly, distorted, sickening art, and look around how beautiful art is being replaced. Lenore, you've been watching Brian Gerrish, haven't you, where he talks about the creepy shock art that seems to be appearing in various public places, because that's absolutely true. I mean, what could be called art nowadays is just unbelievable. Some of it is horrific. Oh, and I've lost my place again. It just keeps slipping down to the bottom. Where was I? I know that Oh, Phil Haynes. Okay. Phil, you said something about Facebook, but you've retracted the message. Okay. Vrillon Aura, if you keep calling people Nazis, you will get Nazis. Well, Vrillon, I mean, if you, at some point, if you keep, if the SJWs keep calling people like me Nazis and racist and things like that, at some point we're just gonna say, oh, go call us that then. We don't care. Diego Rivera, what are your predictions for the rest of the year, Mystic Ben? Well, I don't know. I don't guarantee results. I'm sorry. I'm hoping that the 2016 thing will go through with QAnon and stuff like that. If that doesn't happen, oh, I don't know what I'll do. I'll cross that bridge when I come to it. But as I've said before, I'm no longer associated with the truth movement. I put up a comment. I put up a post on Hapanmo Voice the other day where I basically said I don't want anything more to do with the truth movement. Let me just find it, actually. I want to read the whole thing. Yeah. I changed the banner on all my social media accounts so that the dollar bill image behind the Prohibition Road sign is now gone. And I changed it to a photograph of myself portraying in hospital because I no longer wish to associate myself with the anti-New World Order or so-called truth movement. And this is not because I repudiate any of the factual claims it makes about the NWO. It is because of the truth movement's internal social problems, which have recently become far worse, and I suspect they are unsolvable. The truth movement has failed abysmally in its mission to expose the truth and alert the people of the world to the terrible future awaiting us, and give us the chance to resist that. It has instead chosen to descend into an obsessive morass of infighting, mostly over completely irrelevant personal issues. This does not mean I intend to stop what I'm doing on Hapanmo or even change anything I'm doing, just that I wish to do it independently. I will still continue to assist and collaborate with people in groups in the truth community which I consider trustworthy and professional. All those who fail in that regard, I want nothing more to do with. I've had enough of those people. Basically, my predictions have to involve it's either 2016 or it's the highway to hell. I don't see any other way out. I really don't right now. The truth movement, as I've said, has betrayed its principles, apart from some of the people in it who are decent. And I'll still keep in touch with those people. Lenore says, the first publisher for United Nations was Alice Bailey, the Lucis Trust. That's right, the Lucifer Trust. Yeah, she studied under Madame Helena Blavatsky, the Theosophist. David Icke talks about this in some of his early books. And ironically, he's been blamed for some of the I was watching a video the other day claiming that very old video, claiming that David Icke was part of this Lucis Trust network, which is nonsense. He's one of the ones who exposed it. He's spoken out against the New Age. Iron Man Spartan says, have you been to Stonehenge? Yes. I've done a video recently where I drive past it in a coach, but I haven't actually been to it. I've been close to it. MS1G says, Theresa May's the love child of Keith Chegwin and Olive from On the Buses. Diego Rivera, when was the first alien landing on Earth, Ben? Oh, long ago, and probably long before there was even humans, I think. Mr. Mann says, Stonehenge, you have to walk around it clockwise, 30 feet away for £20. I didn't like Stonehenge when I visited, Mr. Mann. I found it very, you say here, very underwhelming experience, yes. Kennett's Long Barrow much better, and it's free. That's true. Stonehenge also has a bad energy, and I said this in my recent video that I just uploaded about Glastonbury. It does have a dark energy to it, whereas you don't get this in many other sacred sites. Tina, you can go either way. If you go on solstice, you can go inside on the stones. That's true, Tina. Yeah, you can. Cosmic Claire says, I was a bit of a lefty when I was about 19, but fortunately grew out of it. Well, good for you, Claire. So did I. I grew out of it. Luckily, I grew out of it quickly. Funnily enough, I've seen people that I used to know back then, and they're still involved in it. They're still involved with the left. Some of them are still in things like militants and things like that. And I thought, and they're senior in the unions and stuff like that. I think to myself, I feel it's shame that they haven't really seen through it, and they're now quite mature people who still believe it all. They still go along with it. And no doubt they would say the same. What they would say about me is, they say, oh, it's a shame Ben went crazy and lost his mind, because, you know, he'd have been a great comrade. Yeah, I prefer Kenneth's long barrow. Yeah. Sorrenable said, I love it when you go live, Ben. Hello from Ireland. Hey, Sorrenable. Thanks, mate. Well, I'll do some more live streams. I mean, as soon as I have something to do a live stream about, I will do one. Yeah, the reason I haven't done any for a few weeks is because there hasn't been a subject I really feel I can cover on a live stream. Tina says, Mr. Mann, there are two long barrows, East Kennet and West Kennet. Yeah, I think I went to the West Kennet one, Tina. That's where you can go inside it. It's really cool. Phil Hainsworth, lots of spelling mistakes in my last message. Sorry, Ben. It's all right. I was just on Facebook and noticed that you was not on my friends no more. Maybe you had a clear out. Lol, remove me. Have I? I haven't. Unless you, Phil, I haven't removed you. I don't. Honestly, I only remove people from friends if they're assholes. So if you haven't been an arsehole to me, I wouldn't have removed you. It must be, maybe it's a mistake by let's see, you called. Here we are. Just I'm looking you on Facebook now. Phil Hainsworth. Here you are. Is this you? I'll add you. I didn't unfriend you. I don't know how that happened. I've got a feeling you've probably been affected by shadow banning, because one of the symptoms. This is one of the things that happens when you're shadow banned is you find you lose subscriptions, you lose friends. This happens with me on YouTube. I suddenly find I'm no longer subscribed to someone on YouTube that I was subscribed to originally. And this sounds like what's happened to you is a shadow banning. I've just sent you another friend request. So certainly I haven't unfriended you. I just lost my place again. Oh no, where is it? West Kennet near Avebury, yeah. True and cover. The Truther Industrial Complex. Beware the Truther Industrial Complex. What's the time now? Have I had any messages from these people on? Oh, I've got a message. Is it someone? No, it's not. All right. There are two barrows, yeah. West Kennet Long Barrow. Yeah, you hear strange noises inside it, like strange echoes and acoustics in the West Kennet Long Barrow. Whispering. You heard whispering. Oh, right. I heard something strange. I thought it was just echoes. Ironman Spartan says, watch a movie called The Endless. Quite good. The Endless. Okay. I'll just look at this. That's too many things to remember. Hang on, I'll look it up. I'll never remember all these things because of the other Europa thing. The Endless. Intimate. Here we are. Oh, my goodness. Two brothers return to the cult they fled years ago to discover the group's beliefs might be more sane than they once thought. All right. Well, I'll check that out. I'll check that out, Iron Man. Run. I once voted for Tony Blair and still regret it to this day. Please forgive me, Ben, because I've sinned. I couldn't put it better myself, Run. I really couldn't. I'm exactly the same. And Vrillon, yeah. Nothing but parking tickets ever since. Oh. Diego Rivera, will you say stop the New World Order and do this? Hospital Porters, pride and dignity. Stop the New World Order. There you go. Bless you. Mwah, Diego. Crafty Nihilist. Hey, Verity by Damien Hirst is in Ilfracombe. Terrifying. Oh, is that thing? Yes. Is it that thing that looks like a woman with her belly cut open? She's got like a womb. She's pregnant. Because that's Brian Gerrish was talking about that. Because there's this someone who lives at Ilfracombe, and she's got a 3-year-old daughter, and this little 3-year-old girl won't go near it. She calls it the scary baby lady, and she won't go near it. Yeah, everyone, it's sad about Stonehenge, isn't it? Phil Hainsworth, have you had any more thoughts on how and where the Nottingham Roswell actually occurred? Extremely interested, living only 10 minutes from the crash site. Well, Phil, I mean, I go into this in the video I did, and I've done a couple of presentations on that too. I believe, I still maintain that the thing landed at Caden in Thieves Wood between Mansfield and Nottingham. It took off and it landed at that place, oh God, whatever it's called, Hall. Ashworth. No, what's it called? That hall. So I'm having an X-ray port in a moment. Mr. Mann, I heard Stonehenge isn't even on its original site. It's been moved. We know there's some photographs taken apparently in the early 20th century showing it being cranes there and it being moved around. The stones. Virulent aura, leftist virtue signaling, moral busybody sickening. Me too, yeah. Claire, I've lost the. I know a local retired academics around here who lives in £400,000 detached house and call me a racist for not wanting mass immigration. Total lefties well past retirement. I think, oh God, it's true, Claire. I don't think that person will ever change their position. It's like a religious cult. It really is. You know, instead of saying non-believers, they just say racists. And it's ironic, you know, what's ironic about it is that when real racists come along, no one recognizes them because the signal is lost in the noise. As Stefan Molyneux says, it's like an overexposed film. There's, you know, there are real racists. There are people who hate other people for being a different color. And most of them appear to be in South Africa and black. But when they come along, no one sees them because there's just all this nonsense. They're too busy calling Trump a racist and me a racist and you a racist. And it's ridiculous. Is there a McDonald's at Stonehenge? Diego Rivera, did you see that funny thing about... there was this comedy thing I saw about having McDonald's at Stonehenge. It was really funny. McStonehenge. Virulent Aura says, there'll soon be a Starbucks there, yeah. There is one in front of the pyramids. On the front of the Luxor. Oh, really, Tina? There's a McDonald's, or is there a Starbucks in near the pyramids? Oh, bloody hell! Avebury all the way. Annesley Hall, Phil, is. I was trying to think of the name of the place. Annesley Hall is where I believe the craft came down in an area called the Warren in the grounds of Annesley Hall. It's all in the video. Avebury's lovely, crafty nihilist. It's a much nicer place. You can get into it. It's got a nicer energy. Respect you and your thoughts. Thanks, Phil. You too. MS1G, are you aware of what's going on with former East 17 singer Brian Harvey? I know he's speaking out about abuse and about child abuse, and he himself has now been attacked by lots of other people, calling him a shill and stuff like that. It's what's happening. It's now getting rather like the whole Hampstead thing now, MS1G, and it's really awful, and it makes me so angry because this is what I mean by infighting. And all this time, the children are still suffering. Everyone within the campaign community is just attacking each other. I've done an interview with Brian Clare. I've recorded it. It's going to be on my show in a week or two on the Hapano show. That's my radio show. Thank you, Run. Thanks. Great live stream. Thank you. 42. Are there 42 watching? Good. Iron Man Spartan says, do you think Big Pharma is holding back natural cures using hemp oil because they cannot make much money actually healing people? In a word, yes. Now the hemp thing is interesting because they've had to back down a bit on that because as you know, the THC and CBD oils have created very, very powerful anti-cancer treatments. And at some point, and I know people who've used them privately and had excellent results, but you can't get them on the NHS at the moment. And you have to get them privately. I think this is I think there are cracks in the ceiling of this whole thing, which is really, really good. Vrillon, so do I about Brian. Yeah, Brian Clare is, it's really awful. Phil Hayne wants to check your friend request, Ben. I've sent you one. I sent you one too, Phil. There you are. Okay, I've confirmed you. Oh, it must have been another Phil. Oh, sorry, I sent a request to the wrong Phil Hainsworth. I better just cancel request. There we go. It's the wrong Phil. There's lots of Phil Hainsworth, and I sent it to the wrong person. All right, I've got you now. All right, mate. But Phil, it looks like you've been shadow banned. That's how we were unfriended. Ben Grizzly, what subject would we be talking about on the radio, Ben? Do you mean on the Hapano show or on Talk Radio? The next Hapano show is probably going to be with Anne Walsh, who talks about Paul McCartney. I'm not sure. But as for tonight on Talk Radio, I'm not sure. Howard will probably. I've sent him a brief bio. I could talk about my life and the things I've seen and some of my insights, but I'll let Howard lead the subject. Howard's actually a really good interviewer. He asks tough questions, and I'm sort of thinking about being on my. I've got to be on my best, on the tips of my toes for this. Mr. Mann, what's your opinion on mobile EVP apps, Ben? I swear it was talking to me, or was it just the other way around? No, you got to get the proper things, I think, Mr. Mann, like the ones that Don Phillips uses. I don't necessarily the apps you get on mobile phones. I don't know if there may be some fakery involved. I know you get like apps on your phones that can create fake ghost images. Iron Man says, what is happening in South Africa is a test to see how to conquer Europe. Yes, it is. We need to help the farmers. Yes, Iron Man, that's absolutely true. This is going to spread, which is why when Keith M said, oh, to hell with South Africa, what about home? This is one of the reasons why we need to do this. It's not just for the sake of the South African people. It's for the sake of the rest of the world. Brian Harvey stuff, very interesting indeed. Well, I respect him for speaking out, Julian. Yeah, Grim Wriggler, have you visited the pyramids, Ben? Only positive energy now, like Stonehenge. I haven't, Grim Wriggler, no. I would like to go there sometime. I'm hoping to go to Coral Castle, like I said, and do some traveling and stuff. I've got a passport now. I decided the whole anti-passport thing was a bit ridiculous. I shouldn't have done that. I was stupid. Yes, I am MS1. I'm on the radio at 10 p.m. Talk Radio. I'll be on. All right. Just go to Talk Radio, DAB, Digital Radio, Talk Radio. Oh, thanks, Iron Man. I'm glad you're enjoying it. Thank you, Tina. Are you off now? So I'm going to have to, well, it'll be good for 2 hours, so I'll end it soon. But thanks, Tina. Thanks for posting, Tina. And tune in an hour, and I'll be on the air. MS1G, just do Google Talk Radio, and you'll see it. It's Talk Radio with, it's the Unexplained Show with Howard Hughes. Phil Hainsworth, the warren behind Annesley Hall is in the farmer's field. It's extremely difficult to get to. Yes. I will one day with a metal detector. I have watched your presentations about the subject. Thanks, Phil. Be careful, though, because like the gamekeepers, so-called, will get you. I mean, the gamekeepers there, I mean, they seem to be there. It's very obvious they don't want trespassers on that site. And I suspect it's got something to do with the UFOs. Because I was just walking along the Dog and Bear Lane, the little footpath leading along the south side of Annesley Hall. So it's the northeast side, rather. And they were sitting there, they were watching us. It was really creepy. Europa, the last battle for truth. I'll check it out, Mr. Mann. I will. Thanks, Frillon. Thank you. And Run says, why do governments seem too hell-bent on mass immigration? What's their end game? Or they're just trying to bring cheap labor? Either way, most people only want controlled immigration. Yeah, I mean, I think immigration needs to actually stop completely, at least until these forces that are controlling it are lifted. But they want it. Well, first, obviously, on some level, among greedy corporations, it is about cheap labor. On a higher level, though, I think it's about destabilizing the whole culture and society of Europe, so that it can be knocked down and then rebuilt, true Agenda 21 style. I think that's why it's being done. And people have this thing is that one thing that the alt-right gets wrong is that they say, oh, it's the Muslims trying to take us over. They're taking advantage of liberal democratic piety and weakness, and so people like Western governments just letting them come in, and that's not true. They're not letting them in; they're bringing them in. They know exactly what they're doing. They know what they're doing. And they're doing it deliberately. They've actually bred radical Islam. They created radical Islam through their sponsorship of the mega mosques from Saudi Arabia. If it wasn't for this kind of intervention, you know, you'd have like the Sufis and people like that, and would probably be far more powerful. Do you know that it was actually Tony Blair who actually blocked a Sufi Muslim delegation from Syria, were banned from coming into the country? It's just crazy. The Sufis are the Teletubbies of the Muslim world. You know, all they do, they just go around dancing in circles and things like that. They were banned from coming into the country. Yet they bring in these nut jobs from Saudi Arabia to preach hatred in these mega mosques. It's crazy, isn't it? Yeah. Vrillon Aura, yeah. I mean, Vrillon, what you can do is something I've been trying to organize is basically you can go to the Thieves Wood site with a Geiger counter, and with other ways of doing a survey there. I've been trying to organise that at the moment. Hopefully, someone's trying to help me. Hopefully, I'll get it sorted soon. But the Thieves, because the Thieves Wood site is completely open to the public. You get in onto the Nottingham's Area 51, as Phil said. Yeah, it's getting into the Annesley Hall site is very difficult indeed. But getting to Thieves Wood is extremely easy. It's public. Iron Man Spartan says mass immigration is a weapon of war to mix people with no pride and no fight. Partly in Iron Man, but it's also, I think, it might have the opposite effect and create kind of dialectic which could lead to civil war, which could then lead to a new and more powerful version of the European Union being imposed on us. That's what I think is more likely at the present time. Although in the long run, it could definitely be about breaking down, in the Kalergi plan style, breaking down European identity. Right, Phil, fancy a trip to Ireland one weekend? Oh, check out the Hellfire Club. Is there a Hellfire Club in Ireland, Phil? I'd love to go there one day. I would when I've got time and money. I'll go. Yeah, I'd love to. Thanks, Phil. Crafty Nile says, "What's your favourite dystopian film?" It's probably Memoirs of a Survivor. Now that's a very good one. That it's based on the book by Doris Lessing, and I read the book and watched the film. I'm very into Doris Lessing at the moment. I'm on my third Doris Lessing book at the moment, The Golden Notebook. But the actual film Memoirs of Survivor is excellent. It's like because you never find out exactly why the society is collapsing. It just is, and it's like you can almost you put your own imagination, you can create your own scenario there. Like every good author or good creator of a story, she knows what not to tell the reader. And the same goes for the film, which is the film is very, very. It's basically it's almost a scene for scene, very loyal, very, very close adaptation of the film, of the book. Vrillon, all right, you can get pretty decent pocket rad counters these days. That's true, Vrillon. Nick Hayes has got one, the guy who films the UFOs in the sky, the Invisibles. But I'm not sure that's actually suitable for the task in hand of if we go to Thieves Wood. It's an Upgrade, James. No, I've not seen Upgrade. What's Upgrade? Is that a film? Upgrade film, Upgrade. Oh, it's a movie, yeah. Oh, it's in the cinema now. Right. Because I've not done one of my roving film reviews for a while, hasn't it? Set in the near future, technology controls nearly all aspects of life. Oh, Chip Empire. Oh, I've got to see that. When's it on? New cinema. My view. Let's have a look. Upgrade. Well, it's not. I can't see it at the moment. Let's have a look. It's not in my local at the moment, but I'll check it out. That looks bloody. Oh, the Slender Man is on. Oh, good. I got to see that. Oh, it's late. Oh, well, I got to see that. I've got to do another of those roving film reviews at some point. I haven't done one of those for ages. Thanks, Phil. It'd be nice to go there. Thieves Wood. Yeah, well, Phil, I'll let you know. Keep in touch on Facebook. I'll let you know how I'm going along with the whole the project to actually do a proper radiological survey of that area, because I'm hoping to organise that. So I'll let you know because you're close by. David's Children of Men. That's a good one, David Schultz. Yes, that's based on a book, P.D. James. Yes, it will rock your world. I've got to see this now. Right, you are. I mean, it's right. I've got to see that. Yeah, I've got to do another of those roving film reviews. So I know you guys like them. I really know. I know you like them. I know you guys like them. So I will have to do another one at some point. It's not actually in my local at the moment. Not in my local view anyway. Incredibles, The Meg, Yardy, The Equalizer 2, Transylvania, Mission Impossible, Spy Dump. I might get like I might go and see that Slender Man as well. All right. There's a couple of Bollywood movies. It's not in there yet, but I'm sure it will be. All right. The Children of Men was good, David Schultz. Yes, where people stop having babies and humans become infertile. That's good. Hereditary. I've heard of that. Yeah, I've not seen that yet. Leon, does anyone think England is about to bug out location? If so, are any of you preppers? I'm not a prepper. No, I in a sense, I don't want to prepare for the end. You know, I think if we get in a position where the new world order is inevitable, I don't want to survive that. I don't want to survive it. And to be a prepper, in a sense, means it's an attempt to survive the destruction of the free world and the ultimate triumph of the new world order. I'd rather not survive that. But as for England being a place to bug out, if you're in the European Union, yes, for God's sake, if you want to get in a Brexit lifeboat, that's the place to go. Let me know. Oh, thanks, Phil. Thank you very much. I will let Phil. I've got you on Facebook now. I'm trying to sort this out. I don't know when it'll be, but I'm trying to sort out this radiological survey. Diego Rivera, Montague Summer. No, I haven't. I know Montague Keane. Slenderman got poor reviews. Oh, the critics again. Damn these critics. I got nuclear war stuff, gas masks, all sorts of stuff. Oh, Vrillon, I mean, that's cool. You're a prepper. If you want to be a prepper, that's fine. I mean, I just, I think the only thing I hope for is to actually stop the New World Order. And there's no future I want to live in unless we can do that. A cupboard full of rice. My brother's got like loads of cans in his attic. He's storing cans of stuff. Everyone in his house has like got these supplies and stuff like that. I don't know. I suppose, you know, I mean, I've often thought about what I would do. I mean, I'd probably move into Russia. Would probably be a safe thing to do, because if the civil war kicks off, it's probably going to be there's probably going to be like a genocide against white people in Europe. And this is not because I've often people say, well, they don't like the globalists don't like white people. Why is that? I don't think they dislike white people more than anyone else. It's like a strategic thing. It's just we serve a certain purpose at the moment. It's just why it appears they got it in for white people. Russia, the best bet, yeah. Claire, you've got a stash of cans. Then they all go out of date. Okay, yeah. My mother's cupboards was full, yeah. Then she got there, the cupboard was bare. Check out a book called Witchcraft and Black Magic. That's this Summer person. Montague Summer. Right, okay, Diego. Will do. I asked myself why I've banned all guns. Well, Armand, they don't. Well, it's like in America, they're trying to ban guns, aren't they? Do you recall the Anderson bunkers handed out as a kit to English people? Yes, that was that was the shelters, the homemade air raid shelters they created in World War II. I knew someone. I used to live next door to someone who still had their old air raid shelter, and they used it like as a garden shed. It was like a big concrete. It was a more elaborate thing. It was like made out of bits of cement, things like that. Yeah, I mean, Armand, we just got to stop the New World Order. I think that's the only thing to do. Oh, I'm gonna have a little break now. But let's just have a look. I'm probably going to end the live stream in a minute because there's no message yet. And I've still got another nearly an hour before I have to go onto the talk radio show. But I think I need to have a little break. So are you guys all done? If you guys are all done, I think I'll end the stream in a minute. But I just want to thank all of you for posting. All the Armand Adams, Lenore de Castile, Diego Rivera, Vrillon, Cosmic Claire, Tina. Thank you, all of you, for posting in the chat box. I really in the chat. I really appreciate it, all of you. Thanks for tuning in and joining, and all the people like the new people like Crafty Nihilist and that who've just joined. Phil, I mean, it's on. Just go to Talk Radio on DAB Digital Radio. No, Julian. Thanks, Crafty Nihilist. Nice to meet you, Crafty Nihilist. And thanks for joining. Yeah, and I know what you mean. It's been a good one, isn't it? It's been a good one. Run, I don't know why that is. I'm sorry, I don't know why that is. Hey, Phuket here. Hello, Phuket. Turns up at the end. Thank you very much, Phil. Thank you. I'm glad you've enjoyed it. Take care, David Schultz, and best wishes to the missus. See you, Woody Black. Take care. I'll do another live stream soon, and there's more videos coming. Oh, I've got a really good video plan this week. Actually, if all goes well, there'll be a really good video right about midweek. Cheers, Run. Thank you very much. Bye, Ben Grizzly. Yeah, have a tune in. No worries. I'm glad you. Oh, I'm sorry. Oh, you've lost a rabbit. I'm sorry, Phuket. Hi, Dawn. Sorry you missed it. I'll be doing another live stream soon, and there's more videos coming, Dawn. All right. And I won't accidentally delete anything. I accidentally deleted my comments reply video. Oh, God. Bye, Sorenable. But you notice I re-uploaded it. But I deleted the last comments reply video and had to re-upload it. Everyone who commented on that video, your comments are stored. All right. I'm very sorry, Phuket, about the rabbit. I really am. Run, it's what's the radio show? It's called Talk Radio, and it's called The Unexplained Show with Howard Hughes. It's in about 3/4 of an hour's time. All right, but thanks, bye, Sorenable. I hope to see you on. Hope you join in and tune in, because I'm really looking forward to it. I've loved listening to Howard Hughes for so long, and it's great to be on his show. It really is. It'd be really great to be on his show. Hey, Phuket. Okay, guys, I'm going to end the stream now. Thank you very much, all of you. And Hospital Ports, Pride and Dignity. Stop the New World Order.